Alaska is often described with superlatives, and for good reason. It is the largest state in the United States, a place so vast that it is bigger than Texas, California, and Montana combined. Yet it has fewer residents than many American cities. It is part of the United States, but it does not touch the rest of the country. It sits in the far northwest of North America, bordered by Canada, facing Russia across the Bering Strait, and stretching into the Arctic. Alaska is not just remote, it is a state defined by distance, scale, and extremes. Its geography shaped its history, its economy, and the way people live there today. Geographically, Alaska occupies one of the most unusual positions of any U.S. state. It is the northernmost state, reaching deep into the Arctic. It is also the westernmost state, extending through the Aleutian Islands toward Asia. Because some of those islands cross the 180th meridian, Alaska can even be described as longitudinally the easternmost state as well. To the north are the Chukchi and Beaufort Seas, both connected to the Arctic Ocean. To the south lies the Pacific. To the east are Canada's Yukon Territory and British Columbia. To the west, across a narrow maritime border in the Bering Strait, is Russia's Chukotka region. Alaska is closer to Asia than any other American state. Alaska's size is difficult to visualize because most maps distort it or place it in a small box beside the lower 48 states. In reality, Alaska covers more than 660,000 square miles. It is the largest semi-exclave in the world, meaning it belongs to one country but is separated from the main part of that country by another country or territory. Its immense land area includes mountains, glaciers, tundra, boreal forests, islands, fjords, rivers, and coastlines longer than those of all other U.S. states combined. This scale affects nearly everything. Many communities are not connected by roads. Travel often depends on planes, boats, snow machines, or seasonal routes shaped by weather and ice. Despite its huge area, Alaska has a small population. In 2024, it had about 740,000 residents, making it one of the least populous states in the country. It is also the most sparsely populated state, with large areas where people live far apart or not at all. But those numbers can be misleading. Alaska is still the most populous territory in North America, located mostly north of the 60th parallel, with far more people than the combined populations of northern Canada and Greenland. Most Alaskans do not live scattered evenly across the state. About half live in or around Anchorage, the state's largest city and economic center. Alaska's cities are unusual because they often cover enormous land areas. The state contains the 4 largest cities in the United States by area, including Juneau, the state capital. Juneau is not connected to the rest of Alaska's road system, which is rare for a capital city. Reaching it usually requires a plane or ferry. Anchorage, by contrast, functions as the state's main transportation, population, and commercial hub. It connects Alaska to national and international routes, supports military activity, and serves as a gateway for tourism and supplies. In Alaska, the size of a city on a map often tells a different story than its population on the ground. Long before Alaska became part of the United States, Indigenous peoples lived across its coasts, islands, rivers, and interior regions for thousands of years. Alaska is widely believed to have played a crucial role in the first human migrations into the Americas, when people moved from Asia into North America by way of the Bering Land Bridge during periods of lower sea levels. Over time, diverse Alaska Native cultures developed, adapted to very different environments. Coastal peoples built lives around marine mammals, fish, and boats. Interior communities depended on rivers, caribou, and seasonal movement. Today, Alaska has the highest proportion of Native Americans of any U.S. state, at about 22%. European colonization came later, and it came first through Russia. Beginning in the 18th century, Russian explorers and traders moved into the region, drawn largely by the fur trade, especially sea otter pelts. This period became known as Russian America. Russian influence stretched across much of what is now Alaska, but it was difficult to maintain. The region was remote from Russia's main population centers, expensive to supply, and challenging to defend. Russian settlement also brought major disruption to indigenous communities, including disease, labor exploitation, and cultural pressure. At the same time, a distinct native Alaskan Creole population emerged from the interactions among Russian colonists, indigenous peoples, and Orthodox Christian missions. By the mid-19th century, Russia decided that Alaska was more of a burden than an asset. Maintaining a distant North American possession was costly, and Russia worried it might lose the territory in a future conflict without compensation. In 1867, the Russian Empire sold Alaska to the United States for $7.2 million, a sum equivalent to roughly $166 million in 2025. At the time, some Americans mocked the deal as a frozen wasteland purchase. But the criticism did not last. Over time, Alaska proved to contain immense strategic and economic value, from minerals and fisheries to oil, gas, military positioning, and access to the Arctic and Pacific worlds. After the purchase, Alaska did not immediately become a state. It passed through several forms of administration as the United States tried to govern a territory that was enormous, distant, and still poorly understood by many officials in Washington. Gold rushes brought new waves of settlers and attention, while industries like fishing, mining, and shipping expanded. Alaska became an organized territory on May 11, 1912, giving it a more formal political structure. But statehood took decades longer. Supporters argued that Alaskans deserved full representation and control over local affairs. On January 3, 1959, Alaska was admitted as the 49th state of the United States. Alaska's modern economy is shaped by natural resources. Commercial fishing is one of its most important industries, supported by some of the richest marine ecosystems in the world. Salmon, crab, pollock, halibut, and other species link Alaska to global food markets. Oil and natural gas are also central. The discovery and development of major oil fields transformed the state's finances, infrastructure, and politics. Resource extraction helped give Alaska one of the highest per capita incomes in the United States, even though its total economy remains small because of its low population. But depending on natural resources also brings challenges, including price swings, environmental risks, and debates over land use. The federal government plays a major role in Alaska. More than half of the state is federally owned, including national parks, national forests, wildlife refuges, and protected lands. These areas include some of the most dramatic landscapes in North America: vast mountain ranges, glaciers, Arctic coastal plains, and habitats for bears, caribou, moose, wolves, whales, and migratory birds. Federal land ownership creates both opportunity and tension. It supports conservation, tourism, scientific research, and wildlife protection. But it can also limit development and create disputes between state leaders, indigenous groups, conservationists, industries, and federal agencies over who should control Alaska's land and resources. Alaska is also strategically important. Its location between North America and Asia gives it military significance, especially in relation to the Arctic, the Pacific, and Russia. U.S. Armed Forces bases contribute to the state's economy and reflect Alaska's role in national defense. The state's position has become even more important as Arctic ice patterns change, opening discussions about shipping routes, resource access, and geopolitical competition. At the same time, tourism draws visitors who want to see glaciers, northern lights, wildlife, mountains, and remote landscapes. For many people outside Alaska, the state represents wilderness. For Alaskans, it is also home, workplace, homeland, and a place of constant adaptation. What makes Alaska extraordinary is not just one fact, but the way all its facts connect. It is America's largest state, yet one of its least populated. It is part of the United States, but separated by Canada and facing Russia. It has deep indigenous histories, a Russian colonial past, and a relatively recent path to statehood. Its wealth comes from natural resources, but its identity is also tied to land, climate, distance, and resilience. Alaska is not simply a cold frontier on the edge of the map. It is a bridge between continents, a test case for Arctic change, and one of the most distinctive places in the United States. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.